is suddenly caught in a dangerous spiral of sin and passion. The emergence of a forbidden relationship has dragged the exemplary husband and father down a dark path, where crazy decisions lead to unimaginable tragedy. What happened inside that seemingly peaceful home? What secrets are hidden? And why did it all end in such a terrible tragedy? Let's discover the truth behind this haunting story. Sebastian Smith, 40, is the CEO of a leading technology company in New York. Under the glittering lights of the city and the halo of professional success, Sebastian's life is considered by everyone to be the epitome of perfect success. He has a happy family with Celeste Hawthorne, a gentle and caring woman who works part-time as a psychological consultant, and 3 well-behaved and studious children. Despite his perfect appearance, Sebastian feels deep inside an unfillable void. The pressure of work and the monotony of daily life leave him tired and unmotivated. Every day becomes boring, and the desire for a change, a new source of inspiration, gradually becomes stronger. Sebastian's life begins to change when he meets Veronica Ashford, a young, arrogant, and domineering girl working in the entertainment industry. Veronica stands out with her charming appearance and luxurious lifestyle, which makes Sebastian unable to resist her charm. Their relationship quickly develops into a secret affair, while Veronica becomes the center of Sebastian's world. Veronica, with her charm and outstanding personality, ignites the fire of desire in Sebastian. The feeling of glamour and excitement from the relationship with Veronica makes Sebastian forget the fatigue and monotony of everyday life. Under the glittering light of the luxurious life that Veronica brings, Sebastian seems to forget all his responsibilities and obligations to his family. This relationship, initially just an escape from constraints, quickly becomes a deep and secret love affair where Veronica becomes the center of passion in Sebastian's life. Celeste, the devoted and gentle wife, unaware of her husband's secret affair, continues to care for the family and children with all her love. She continues to live in the belief that her family is happy, while the painful truth about Sebastian's betrayal is silently growing. Since meeting Veronica, Sebastian's habits have begun to change significantly. He often comes home late, constantly making excuses that he is busy with work or has unexpected meetings, although it is clear that he has become negligent and less concerned about his family responsibilities. The family dinners that Sebastian used to attend have become silent voids, and the family vacations that he used to look forward to are now just a distant memory. Celeste, Sebastian's wife, tried to organize a cozy family evening to make up for his absence. The evening had been planned for a long time, hoping to reconnect the family members. But when Sebastian was absent, he gave the excuse of being busy with work, which made Celeste and the children feel forgotten and abandoned. Leora, Sebastian and Celeste's eldest daughter, 10 years old, began to notice the increasing tension in the family. She felt confused when her father often came home late and had unusual behavior. Being a smart and sensitive girl, Leora sensed the change in the family atmosphere. She was always worried about her mother and siblings and felt insecure about her father's distance. The other 2 children, Jacob and Leo, also sensed the family's instability, though they were too young to understand why. Jacob, 5, would often ask his mother about his father in a confused manner, while Leo, 3, would be irritable and cranky whenever his father came home late. During the long nights when the house was quiet, Celeste would lie awake, thinking about the unusual signs she had noticed. She wondered if Sebastian had a bigger problem that she didn't know about, or if there was something going on in his life that she couldn't understand. This anxiety not only affected Celeste's mental health, but also added to the tension in her relationship with her husband. The breakdown in the family relationship becomes more apparent when Veronica begins to control and manipulate Sebastian, making him feel trapped between 2 worlds. Veronica, with her challenging personality and strong control, causes Sebastian to be distracted and unable to focus on the family. The combination of these factors creates a tense and conflicted atmosphere in the Smith household. As the distance between Sebastian and Celeste becomes more and more apparent, Celeste begins to feel something is wrong. The unexplained phone calls, strange messages, and Sebastian's increasing absences have made her suspicious. Celeste decides to secretly check her husband's phone. She not only finds messages from Veronica, but also discovers sensitive pictures and plans for secret meetings between Sebastian and Veronica. Each message carries provocations and plans for secret dates. Celeste decides to investigate to clear things up. She checks Sebastian's phone and computer, discovering texts and emails from Veronica. These messages are not only filled with sweet nothings, but also plans for secret evenings and trips. Feeling betrayed and hurt, Celeste decides to confront Sebastian and demand an explanation. Celeste asks Sebastian to come home early one evening so they can have a serious talk. When Sebastian enters the house, he immediately senses the heavy atmosphere. Celeste has prepared evidence and cannot contain her anger. She points to the computer screen and phone, questioning Sebastian and the betrayal. Sebastian, taken aback and put in an awkward position, begins to justify that the relationship with Veronica is just a part of his personal life, a way to escape from the pressures of work and the monotony of marriage. He denies any responsibility for his family and insists that Celeste does not understand his feelings. Celeste feels like she is talking to a stranger. She firmly asks Sebastian to choose between her family and Veronica. Although Sebastian promises to reconsider, his actions and words show his insincerity. Celeste feels like she is facing an unwinnable battle. Every time Celeste tries to dig deeper into what is going on, Sebastian only gives vague excuses and often avoids them. Celeste feels like she is losing control of the relationship, and the tension in the family is increasing. Meanwhile, Veronica has no intention of giving up on Sebastian. She continues to dominate his life, constantly demanding his attention and time. Veronica constantly challenges Sebastian, making him feel caught between two worlds. Her presence in Sebastian's life has left him feeling distracted and unable to focus on his family. The arguments between Celeste and Sebastian become increasingly heated, and everything in the Smith household seems to be on the verge of collapse. Celeste, clearly feeling the cracks in her marriage, begins to feel lonely and helpless. She tries to keep the family together, but each effort is met with implicit resistance from Sebastian. He seems to have become distant, no longer spending time with the children, and often using work as an excuse to avoid dealing with the tense situation at home. Meanwhile, Veronica continues to draw Sebastian deeper into their relationship. Not only does she demand his attention, but she constantly pressures him to make clear decisions, putting him in an awkward position. Veronica knows that she has captured Sebastian's mind, and she wants to make that capture permanent. Every time Sebastian seems hesitant or uncertain, Veronica pushes him towards her with provocative words and irresistible charm. Sebastian begins to live a double life. By day, he is a husband and father who seems to still be somewhat responsible, but by night he is lost in Veronica's world. His promises to Celeste to reconsider the situation are quickly forgotten as he is drawn into a whirlwind of passion and Veronica's pressure. Celeste can't help but feel that something is very wrong. Sebastian's change is not only in the time he spends with his family, but also in the way he views life and responsibilities. He becomes rigid, cold, and often avoids serious conversations about the family's future. The happy moments of the past are now just distant memories, replaced by endless arguments. The tension escalates to a climax when Celeste decides to confront Veronica directly. One afternoon, after Sebastian is once again absent from a family party he promised to attend, Celeste can't take it anymore. She goes to Veronica, hoping that a direct confrontation will help her understand the situation better and perhaps find a way to save her marriage. However, when Celeste confronts Veronica, she is not met with remorse or regret. Instead, Veronica is arrogant and defiant, not hesitating to admit her relationship with Sebastian. She even mocks Celeste for trying to save a marriage that is clearly broken. This encounter not only breaks Celeste's heart, but also pushes her into a state of utter despair. When Celeste returns home, she no longer feels like she can continue to fight for her family. She realizes that Sebastian has changed too much and is too far out of her reach. Any attempt to mend the relationship is like adding fuel to the fire of conflict. Celeste gradually loses faith in her ability to save her marriage, and her feelings of abandonment and betrayal grow stronger. Meanwhile, Sebastian, torn between duty and passion, falls deeper and deeper into his affair with Veronica. His promises to Celeste quickly become empty, and he begins to accept that the collapse of his family is inevitable. Sebastian is no longer just a straddler between two worlds, but is gradually drawn to Veronica, no matter the consequences. The guilt and pressure from both sides begin to crush Sebastian. He cannot escape the feeling that he has betrayed not only Celeste but also the values he once held dear. But every time he tries to return to his family, Veronica appears, seductive and threatening, keeping him trapped in a spiral of passion and destruction. Everything in the Smith household seems to be on the verge of collapse, and Sebastian, knowing it, cannot stop himself from plunging into the abyss. The tensions in the Smith household continue to mount, like a time bomb waiting to explode. Celeste, after her confrontation with Veronica, becomes depressed and insecure. She feels trapped in a marriage where her husband has changed so much. She cannot accept the fact that Sebastian, the man she once loved and trusted, is now completely absorbed in a passionate and destructive relationship with Veronica. Leora, the eldest daughter, began to notice a clear change in her mother. She often saw her mother sitting quietly in the room, her eyes filled with tears, and sometimes she could not hold back her sobs. Leora no longer recognized her parents, who had once been perfect in her eyes. The anxiety and insecurity in the family spread more and more, affecting Jacob and Leo. The children became confused and scared by the sudden and incomprehensible changes. The conflicts and arguments increased. They no longer had a common voice. The climax of the tension occurred when Leora suddenly entered the room, witnessing her parents arguing fiercely. She burst into tears, screaming for her father not to abandon the family. Leora's appearance caused everything to explode. Sebastian, surrounded by guilt, pressure from both sides and panic, lost control. He shouted that he couldn't go on like this anymore, that he felt trapped too and didn't know what to do. His words, instead of soothing, only made the situation worse. Veronica, though not physically present, was a shadow that was always present, dominating Sebastian's every decision. She knew how to manipulate him, pulling him away from his family at the most crucial moments. The tension reached its peak as Sebastian was faced with the most painful choice of his life: the family he had loved, or his passionate but destructive love for Veronica. In that moment, everything seemed to come crashing down, and Sebastian knew there was no easy way. He had to make a decision, but no matter what he chose, the damage was too deep, and the lives of all involved were forever changed. Sebastian has spent weeks torn between his family and his relationship with Veronica Ashford. The pressure from both sides has left him increasingly exhausted and disoriented. Veronica keeps threatening to expose their relationship if Sebastian doesn't leave the family soon. Meanwhile, Celeste is increasingly insistent that he make a clear decision. Everything comes to a head one evening when Sebastian's eldest daughter, Leora, 10, discovers her father's relationship. She overhears a phone conversation between her father and Veronica and finally understands the secret relationship. Leora, naive but loyal to her mother, decides to confront her father to protect her family. When Sebastian returned home late at night, Leora was waiting for him in the living room. With teary eyes and a broken heart, she asked her father frankly, why did he do this to Mom and us, if he didn't love her and the two of them anymore? Sebastian, already exhausted and stressed after a stressful day at work and endless arguments with Veronica, felt like he was being pushed to the edge. He couldn't bear any more confrontation, especially from his own daughter. Leora's words were like a blow to his heart, but instead of admitting his mistake, anger and pressure pushed him over the edge. Sebastian tried to explain, stuttering, but Leora wouldn't accept her father's excuses. She cried and begged him to come back to the family, not to leave her mother and siblings. Leora's fierce resistance made Sebastian feel like he was being attacked from all sides, from Veronica, from Celeste, from work, and now from his own daughter. In that moment, all the stress that had been building up over the years burst forth. Sebastian, panicked and out of control, felt like the world was collapsing around him. He was no longer himself. The anger, despair, and feeling of being cornered had transformed him into a completely different person. In a blind act, Sebastian pushed Leora out of the way when she tried to stop him from leaving the house. The force of the push was so strong that Leora fell and hit her head on the glass table, causing a severe impact. Seeing his daughter lying motionless on the floor, blood pouring from her head, Sebastian suddenly realized the brutality of his actions. But the feeling of panic and fear continued to overwhelm him. He could not face the reality that he had caused this. In his blind state, Sebastian was no longer in control of his actions. Instead of calling for help or trying to help his daughter, He fell into a frenzy, believing that everything was lost and there was no way back. Regret and fear paralyzed his mind, leading to the final decision: if he had lost Leora, then everything else was meaningless. In a complete panic, Sebastian continued his madness, leading to a tragic chain of events that he could not stop. Sebastian, standing there, stared at his daughter's small body lying motionless on the floor, blood flowing from her head wound onto the floor. The truth of his actions began to flood into his consciousness like a tidal wave, but he could not face it. In that moment, fear and complete panic took over him. Sebastian felt himself being pulled into a spiral of despair and madness. Regret began to turn into irrational anger. He felt cornered, trapped between choices with no way out. In his chaotic mind, he began to think that everything was over, that he had nothing left to lose. Celeste, hearing the loud noise from the living room, rushed in with horror in her eyes at the scene before her. She knelt down beside Leora, crying, trying to shake her daughter. But Leora remained there, unresponsive, sending Celeste into a state of utter despair. Celeste, in despair and pain, stared at Sebastian with eyes filled with pain and resentment. She could not comprehend the horror before her eyes. The man who had once been the support of the family had now become the cause of destruction. A series of chaotic thoughts flooded Celeste's mind. She felt as if her entire world was collapsing. Sebastian stood there, eyes empty, completely lost in the abyss of madness. Celeste's harsh accusations did not seem to reach him. Instead, they only increased the feeling of despair and loss of control, as if all reality had disappeared, leaving him with a lifeless void. In an inexplicable act, Sebastian suddenly attacked Celeste. His rage and desperation had clouded any remaining rationality. His actions were no longer those of a husband or a father, but of a man driven by rage and desperation. Celeste, too taken aback by her husband's brutality, had no time to fight back. She was pushed to the floor, and Sebastian, in a fit of madness, squeezed her neck in a moment of madness. When Celeste stopped moving, Sebastian let go and looked down at his hands. The hands that had been so gentle in caring for his family were now instruments of destruction. Awareness of his actions began to return, but it was too late. Everything had spiraled out of control. Jacob and Leo, hearing the screams and loud noises, ran down the stairs. They saw a horrifying scene before them: their mother lying motionless on the floor, and their father standing there, looking like a ghost. Jacob began to cry out, while Leo could only stand frozen in fear. The cries of his son only drove Sebastian further mad. He could no longer bear any more sounds, any reminders of his sins. In his madness, Sebastian turned to his two young children. The next few moments were blurred and painful, as he was no longer himself, but completely driven by rage and despair. He attacked both Jacob and Leo in a terrifying moment, when all reason and human emotion disappeared. The screams of his children faded into the cold space of the house, leaving a deadly silence. As the hysteria subsided, Sebastian looked around and realized the horror he had caused. His entire family, the people he had loved, the people he had sworn to protect, were lying motionless on the floor. His heart was squeezed by an indescribable regret and pain. He felt like he had lost everything, and there was no way back. Sebastian sat on the floor, head in his hands, guilt and emptiness overwhelming him. Tears began to fall, but they were no relief. In that moment, he realized he had lost everything: his family, his life, and himself. Left with no other choice, Sebastian decides that the only way to end it all is to end his own life. He slowly stands up, staggering to the kitchen, where he grabs a large knife. The silence in the house is broken only by the faint sounds from the street. Holding the knife in his hand, Sebastian knows there is no turning back. He walks like a shadow, feeling nothing but a deep emptiness. Sebastian stands before the mirror, looking at his reflection, a man he no longer recognizes. With a single, decisive move, he kills himself, leaving behind a bloody house and an unimaginable tragedy. The story ends with a terrifying silence, as everything is broken beyond return. What remains are the fragments of a once happy family and the memories of a life destroyed by despair and madness.